Now, as we get set to ring in the new year, I am super excited to welcome my next guest. Joining me now is Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. He represents the state's 6th congressional district and serves as the assistant Democratic leader. But beyond all of that, this is my friend, my brother, and my fraternity man. How are you? Good afternoon, or good morning, rather. Let's get right to it, big brother, sir. This current Congress, it has been the least productive in decades, and we've got to really deal squarely with that. According to Axios, just 20 bills that have been in the House and the Senate have passed this year. That's it, just 20. And there's a laundry list of agenda items that still have to get done. We've got funding for the government on a permanent basis. We've got passing bills for allies abroad and foreign aid. We've got immigration reform and so many others. You've been in the seat for a very long time. Do you see any clear path to get us beyond this point of stagnation?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year to my frat. Thank you so much for having me with you. Look, we are in a very critical stage here in this country, and it's reflected in the Congress. As you know, the Republican Party has just seemed to have disintegrated. It's now being controlled by what seems to be a cult, and they have decided that there are certain things that they will not allow to happen, and that is what it takes to continue this country on its pursuit of perfection. That's what this country has been about since the beginning. And we have always been in pursuit of a more perfect union. They seem to want everything to be perfect to their liking, or else it does not happen. And so that's why we have not gotten much done in the Congress. And when we have closed ranks to do what benefits the country, we have seen a reaction from the Republican base. First, throwing out a Speaker of the House for working with the Democrats in order to keep the country moving forward. And now another threat for the new Speaker of the House because he has found it necessary to do things to keep the government running. So, no, I don't see anything happening without a definitive election. That's what makes 2024 so important. That's what makes these primaries so important. And I would hope that the Supreme Court would move quickly to make its decisions on this election going forward, because I think the Republican voters have a right to vote for candidates without clouds hanging over them. This cloud can be removed very quickly if the court will act as it did with Al Gore, and it also did with former President Nixon.
Congressman Clyburn, you know, I'm going to shoot straight with you. And if don't nobody else say it, I'm going to say it. Sir, you, sir, are in no small part responsible for altering the course of history when it comes to presidential elections. Everyone remembers what happened during the primaries in 2020 because Joe Biden came into South Carolina in 4th place. And it was your endorsement in that primary that catapulted him to gain the momentum that was necessary to secure the nomination and ultimately become the president. A lot of what happened there was giving a nod to Black America. And I got to ask you straight, do you feel like the president has delivered on what that nod represented?
Absolutely. You can go down by the numbers, starting with the Rescue Act, getting our schools reopened, getting our businesses back on their feet. He did the things that were necessary, bringing over half of the children who were living in poverty, and much as a result of COVID-19, brought them out of poverty with the rescue plan. Then he moved with the largest infrastructure bill that we've had in this country since Dwight Eisenhower's Interstate Highway. Then the CHIPS and Science Act, bringing manufacturing back to this country. Then he went with the Inflation Reduction Act, cutting the cost of medicine, reducing insulin down to $35 a month. My late wife died from diabetes, and I can tell you, I saw $800 and $900 a month insulin bills because she was a full shot a day diabetic. So I know what it is if you can reduce that cost to $35 a month. The PACT Act, getting those veterans who were not treated fairly coming back from the Vietnam War, getting that done. And then the all-important student, public service student elimination of the student debt of public servants. Over $132 million in debt relief to 3.4 million people. Student debt relief. We keep hopping on that one part that the Supreme Court outlawed, and we don't even talk about the 132 million, many of whom are here in my district. I ran across a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, got $200,000 relief from debt. He had 3 degrees, borrowed money for all of them, thought he would go to his grave still alone that money, and because of Joe Biden, it's gone away. So yes, he has kept his promise. Now, we have not been able to do voting. Why? Because the Supreme Court has prevented us from doing it. And just like they prevented us from doing the other part of debt relief, Joe Biden has kept his promise to the American people, and I think he has been an incredibly good president. I think the best producer since Lyndon Baines Johnson Great Society program back in the 1964 and 65.
That is high praise for the president, and it sounds to me like you might need to get in contact with his campaign, or his campaign might need to get in contact with you, because right now that messaging isn't breaking through. There's about a 63% approval rating among Black Americans when they voted for him at about 92%. And so something about the talking points you just talked about is not getting to the actual audience that Joe Biden seeks to reach. But I want to move on and ask you about House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Really quickly, he is seeming to be the next wave. He has a lot in front of him with respect to a Congress that is Republican controlled, but trying to steer the Democratic Party in a particular direction. As the elder statesman, give me one piece of advice that you've given him to try and help him move along and move the agenda forward.
He has a lot in front of him, but he has a lot of people behind him. And I'm in that group. He is an incredible leader. He is keeping our caucus together. He is articulating the issues in a way that they need to be articulated. And I do believe that I will be standing with him here on January 15th on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We'll be here in Columbia, South Carolina together. And he will enunciate on that day that which I think African Americans throughout the country ought to hear. He believes, as I believe, that this democracy is at stake. The freedoms of Americans are at stake. We must re-elect Joe Biden and do it in a way that would demonstrate to the MAGA Republicans and all others who may be looking for an autocracy that democracy will continue to rule the day here in the United States of America.
Last question, Congressman, before I let you go. Are you throwing the fish fry this year, and can I come? That's all I need to know before you get out of here. Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.